Mártin Gklazs Sérup. We are very happy to have you here tonight in the book festival on Hanya. So I would like to ask you some questions. For example, you wrote this collection of poetry called Mártin, the Field, which was translated in many languages. Among them, one was in Greek.
This one, yeah.
This one, yes. What does the word Mártin, the field, mean to you? And who is this field anyway?
Yeah. Well, the field is sort of like a person, right? It's a long poem, and I chose to make it the field because a field is both at the same time very culture. It's a cultured piece of nature, like like the human being. So I tend to think of this book as like everybody's autobiography, with words I stole from Gertrude Stein. She's talking about everybody's autobiography, but really the field is very much about a middle-class person in the Western world, regardless of gender. Somebody who wants to do good, but don't really know how, and somebody who's too busy, and so the field. Like, to get back to your question, is the field is a cultured piece of nature, like human beings. So I hope this is very much like a collective autobiography of an expanded culture that is the Western world.
Very obvious, very good point. What kind of issues inspire you both in poetry and in prose?
It depends, of course. It depends, of course, on what poetry and what prose I'm writing, because it's not always. I do not always write about the same issues. For instance, I mean, like the field is very much, I think, like a portrait, and an attempt to make a portrait of what is going on now in a well-educated and fairly rich part of the middle class in the Western world, at least if you compare it to the rest of the world. Whereas Part of Life, Del af livet, my first novel that we're also going to talk about tonight, I think, that's very much about divorce, but more than just divorce. It's about what happens to the children in a divorce, and especially from the point of view of the man. So it's very much about sons and fathers.
You are mostly a poet. You wrote many collections of poetry in your biography, but recently you wrote quite an impressive novel.
That's the one. Thank you.
Yes, both in pages, number of pages, and in material. What made you write a novel?
I mean, like, because I think that it's very. I also write children's literature, and I write essays, and different kinds of things. But I think the reason that I chose a novel and not a poem, for instance, to deal with this topic is very much because of the nature of the topic. I think this topic, to investigate that, to find out what's going on, was more. It was possible in prose more than in poetry, because what you do in fiction, in prose, there's a narrative very often. In poetry, what you do very often is to stop time. In prose, you let time passes. Things are moving from one point to another.
Yes.
And this is very much about, as I said before, sons and fathers and different parts of life, right? And this is also only like a part of the life, right? It's focused primarily on like the family situation. So the reason I chose it to be a fiction is that, or you could say maybe even, but that sounds a little, but that the topic chose me, right? I couldn't write this as a poem, I think, because also there's like, psychology and life and time in it.
Which writers or poets have you been influenced by, if any?
Of course, I mean, like nobody stands alone, I don't think one single writer will say that I'm not influenced by other writers, because how do you know what writing is? Many different poets, and also it depends, of course, on when you ask me and what I'm doing and thinking. But I would say, for instance, Gertrude Stein, as I just mentioned, the American author, but also Pentti Sarikoski, the Finnish poet, and Lynn Hegenian, American, and the Danish poet Peter Laugesen, who is living now. He's still living, and I could mention many other writers also, and of course, obviously, maybe a writer like Franz Kafka. He's really, I mean, like it's almost embarrassing to say, because everybody's like, yeah, Franz Kafka, but I sort of had like the experience of that he's becoming better and better and better. The older I get, the more I read him, and I did read him before. I thought he was a good writer, but it's becoming more and more interesting. Exactly the same words.
Yes.
I think.
What do you think about the book festival in Khanya?
Oh, I love it. I love to be here, and I'm very grateful to be here. There's so many different and interesting presentations, and also audience interact. There's a lot of questions, a lot of things going on. I like that very much. So I'm happy to get to be a part of it. And also I must say that the weather right now in Greece is much better than in Denmark. Usually it's the other way around, but there's a heat wave in Denmark, and this is very pleasant, like the Greek summer compared to the Danish one right now.
I saw that today that the heat wave has left Denmark.
Okay.
So it is normal weather now, normal Danish weather.
So it'll be good to come back.
Yes.
Also.
So you are lucky.
I'm lucky, yes. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much
for everything.
Thank you for having me.